Welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Creatives. In this episode, we're chatting with Matt Keeson, a Cape Town food photographer, and he's going to be sharing some of the photos that for him personally mean something and some of his photo projects that he's been working on. Grab a cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate because it's super cold at the moment, and enjoy what Matt has to share. I kind of looked at it as something like you have pictures that have a lot of like width in the sense of that a lot of people can like connect to it when they see it. It's just like automatically, it's just an obviously beautiful picture. And then there's the pictures that have a lot of depth, and obviously you can have a combination of them too. But sometimes the ones that have a lot of depth, they don't. They need a bit of of a background.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. I don't know, like how you think of the whole saying, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." Like, I get it sometimes, but there's like a lot of things where it's also, like, I don't know, the picture doesn't tell you anything. You kind of need some words with it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just more of like an abstract thought or an abstract feeling that sometimes it's a collection of things. It's not just like composition or. So that's actually very cool. Like, I don't think there's like a lot of, well, I mean, like I haven't really seen like a lot of people like talk about, like the more personal kind of stuff. So, but the images that I sent you, like I thought I had more. And then when I went to go look at them, they seemed a lot better like years ago. And I was like, ooh, wait, that's actually like terrible. So, but I did get, I don't really necessarily have like one photo that like means a lot. Well, I mean, like I do, but for me, I wanted to kind of touch on like a series of photos, or a couple of photos that kind of signified that era of my life.
Yeah.
Like, with regards to photography and creativity and stuff like that. So, and that's like something I've never really actually talked about because no one really kind of bothers to ask. It's like
exactly
work.
Yeah.
And do the work, and then you've got your personal stuff, which not everyone gets to hear the backstories too. So this is pretty cool.
From like following your work, is just a bit of a backstory. I think we know each other because of like band stuff, right? You played in a band. We used to see each other at Gandalf's and Raw and all those places. And I don't know, did you do like band photography back then as well? That was kind of how I guess like started was I got a camera around that time, and I was like, it's kind of fun to shoot the other bands while I'm playing. And then
I played in this punk band like in the early 2000s called Squirmish, and like we used to just do like everything ourselves. And our front man and bassist Sean Toomey, he like did like all the photography and all that stuff, and like I was actually like pretty impressive like what he was doing, and like that kind of like made me take notice and like, okay, cool. And then like in 2007, that's when I decided like one of my friends was going to go to photography like classes. It's like a 4-week course, and she asked if I wanted to come with, and I was like, yeah, like I've got an interest in it. And I went there and I was like, wow, that's really fucking cool. Sorry, can I swear on you? You're gonna have to edit on. So I was like, it was really cool, and our teacher was really rad, and he really encouraged us to like explore it on our own. And then like when I started another band with Sean, he was like doing like a lot better at like like Photoshop and everything, and then that's when I really started like getting involved, and then kind of exploring it from there.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so like music was definitely the first thing that kind of turned me onto it. I'm a bit weird. Like I don't necessarily have like an emotional attachment to certain photos, but there's one over here in particular that there is. But I thought it would be pretty cool just to kind of the photographs that kind of helped me in my journey, like where I am now versus like when I started. So yeah, so this was again back in the flat, and just the reason why I've got such an attachment is because these are like my favorite people in the world. Raccoon Face, my cat, who we still have, and Natalie, who's like my best friend, and we've just been through loads and loads together, and this photo just came together so nicely. And so, I was talking about the flat, and it just had the best light ever, especially like in the mornings and in the evenings, because it was kind of like on the corner. And so the light just kind of moved all the way through. So this, I just like threw a black sheet behind them, and it was all just like there was a window to the right and a window to the left. And it just kind of like Natalie was just doing a thing, and I just started taking photos, and then this was the one that kind of really stuck with me. And yeah, so there's not too much to explain about it. It's one of my favorite photos that I have.
No, it's awesome, and the cat is he is like super chill.
Yeah,
He's
super chill, dude. Yeah, he is like ridiculously chilled, lazy, if you want to use those words.
And like what was the thought process going into, say, doing a shoot with like them two together? Was it how did you go into that?
Well, for this, man, I mean, this was like years ago. This is like about 2010, 2009, 2010. And I think I just really wanted to get like a cool like portrait shot of like the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just came together nicely, and just like the black and white just sold it for me. But yeah, again, for this one in particular, it's just more of like the people and the beings involved that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And most of the photos like that I've actually chosen aren't like necessarily technically amazing, because you'll be able to see like there's creases in the sheet and stuff like that. Like I can be quite like I just want to get like this idea out of my head and take the photo. And sometimes it's not always a good thing. Sometimes, especially like in my early years, I'd rush things, and like as you progress, I suppose your eye kind of dials in and you become more like detail orientated. So like technically speaking, like even the focus isn't actually where I intended it, because I wanted it to be like on the cat's eyes.
Oh, right.
But I think it's on Natalie's hand, and that's also just like because of the camera at the time. It was like a 30D, and you only had like I think 9 points of focus, so it's like choose the closest focal point that I wanted to get, and that was it. But yeah, it's a nice photo that I like.
Yeah, I quite like what you said about sometimes you just need to get an idea out. Like you have this idea and you just need to like get it out.
Absolutely.
I definitely like connect with that, and often, the idea isn't the idea that I had in my head doesn't execute at all like how I thought it would.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
also,
often
like sometimes
it's like a release like process, just to, even if you're not going to use it, it's just to get it out, and it's like, oh, cool, thank
absolutely.
you. Like
yeah, I was just about to say, like, a lot of the times, especially with the next photo I'll show you now, it's more of the process than the actual, like the final image. And like a lot of these shots, like I'd say that they're like test shots, because I was mainly just, experimenting with different ideas and et cetera, which we'll come to. But yeah, absolutely, man. Like the process, it's therapeutic. Okay, so this was actually like the idea of this was pretty cool. So in this photo is just me, and this is Taran, one of my best mates. And this was in 2014, 2015. It was like when the blackouts were kind of a thing, the rolling blackouts. And Taran and I, he'd like come to my flat and we would just like talk, and like we'd make up stories, and he was getting into photography and stuff like that as well. And like the thing that like our thing that we used to do is like he was like he's big into like comics and like like stories like that, and we would like write out like these little kind of skits that we always like threatened to like make like little videos or something that we never did. And this one idea that we came up with was just kind of like a silly kind of like comic story, like a superhero kind of story, but we wanted to use like photography. and all the photos that we saw of what are they called, like graphic novels, like photography novels. Like if you Google it, you'll see it. Like it just like it didn't look cool, and we wanted to like have like a rad like aesthetic to it. So at that time, I was experimenting with painting with light and stuff like that. And because of the blackouts and everything, I said to him, like, dude, here's an idea. What happens if we just, instead of like using flashlights and stuff, which we didn't have, let's use just like a normal torch, like a camping flashlight. And so these images, and like we took like loads, man. We actually like storyboarded a couple of things.
Okay.
And it was really time consuming. Like at least once a week you'd come around and we'd just like drink tea, talk, cuck, and like make photos. So these were the ones that one of the better ones. So literally, the room was absolutely pitch black. For some reason, the lights outside, like the street lights, were on, but like a whole block was obviously didn't have any power. And I put the bulb exposure on for like 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, we painted each other. So this is a composition of like maybe 3 or 4 different photos. You can actually see like on the right-hand side, you'll see like those light flares.
Yeah.
It's like obviously from the torch. So he would like light for me, and then the next image I'd light for him, and then bring it all together in Photoshop. And what was cool about it is like there's no real direction, like lighting direction, which gave it like a, like kind of like a comic book, like a graphic novel-esque kind of vibe, and where you could really control like what was lit and what was not. And these were obviously all test shots. Like it was by no means like perfect, and I don't know, there was something about that charm of like of it not being perfect that like I actually really like. And so so we came up with like the Nighttime Chronicles, and it was just like a silly story of like the two of us going on like kind of this adventure. But this, like doing these shots, like you learn a lot, man. When you've got like a 30-second or 25-second exposure, and like we had to like stand like perfectly still, and like everything like kind of had to be even, because like if you burn it too much in one part, like it'll be too bright. So we like literally like did this like 3 or 4 different times for like the table we did separately, the couch and me we did separately, the bookcase we did separately, Tehran we obviously did separately, and we just kind of brought it all in Photoshop and just to get an idea of the look. And again, this was just like something like we had an idea, we just wanted to get it out there and just like do it, and the process was actually really cool.
As far as like finding someone to do that with you, is that a challenge sometimes? To sort of...
Dude, I mean, that's what's so great about it, is that it was so organic. Tehran and I, we played in bands before, and like we were like on the same length, and it's just weird that we just had the same interests, and whenever we got together, we would just like talk about these interests, and then it just kind of like snowballed, and then we were like, let's do it. And then so like whenever I want to do something creative, like Tehran's usually like the first person that I like ask, like, do you want to come help me? Because I can also be like lazy, dude. Like, like when you have this idea and you want to do it and you just keep on putting it off and putting it off. I'm like one of those people that sometimes needs like someone to like kick me off my butt and like do it. And Tehran's that person without him actually needing to kick my butt. Like,
exactly.
Around, like I want to kind of do it, and he's the same. So we kind of feed off each other, and and that's really cool. So it was really organic. It's not like I went out and like looked for someone to help me with. But I also find like with stuff like this, you'll see like through all my photos, like Natalie's another art person that I use a lot in my photographs, and I just there's something about like a trust between your subject and the photographer that you can't always like emulate with anyone. And it's just like their relaxed kind of nature, it kind of adds to the photograph, and it's also why it like means a lot to me, this one.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's kind of, I mean, I think it's maybe something that I've struggled a little bit with, maybe because we've like traveled a lot, so it's always meeting new people.
Jeez. Yeah.
Is to have a connection with someone to do that with, because like you say, it's definitely there needs to be like a trust, and there's also it's like a
Yeah.
collaboration. So say for example with the one of the cats and then like Natalie, like you weren't necessarily thinking before the time, okay, I want a picture of a model bending over with a cat on the head, right?
Exactly.
That was her
Exactly.
contribution to what was happening, and she just goes with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like stuff like that, like your model won't, if they're definitely not comfortable with you, the chances are they're not going to pull off something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's quite crazy. And it's also like their personality coming out, like, what they feel comfortable doing in front of the camera. And you're
Yeah.
either like lucky enough to get that frame or maybe not, or there might be another one that's equally as good. But yeah, it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of trust.
Yeah.
2016. Yeah, so like I went through like this kind of growth spurt in like creativity and like photography around that time. And I think that's like how I really started to like understand uh, like using lighting creatively and stuff like that. Um, and at that time I was house sitting, like I used to do like a lot of house sitting in different houses, and this was one of the houses. In fact, all the next few photos are all from houses that I house sat in. And when I was house sitting here, this is like a spooky house. It's quite big, and I was like all by myself. And Natalie came to like chill with me, and I said like I really want to like photograph like parts of this house because it's like really cool. And this was the first one that I had in mind, and it's again, like I didn't know what I was wanting. I didn't know what I wanted her to do. Actually, this was, if I remember correctly, like I knew I wanted her like sitting like this, but we did like a whole lot of different ones of her in different poses. And this is again composition of like 3 or 4 different shots. The main one, like I took an exposure of just the stairs by itself without Natalie. And then you'll see like the beam of light that's coming through on the floor. That was
Yeah.
also photographed separately. And then I photographed Natalie separately. And then I just kind of blended them all together.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, like these photos, like I wanted to kind of use like lighting to like create like a mood. There's nothing deep about the meaning of the image or anything. It's just like I wanted to create like a cinematic kind of feel. And one of my main people that like really inspired me and still does, I don't know if you know photographer Gregory Keeson.
No, I don't.
He does these like really like elaborate setups. So his style is like he does like film setups just for a single frame.
Okay.
Sorry, I got mosquitoes around. So he's like got these like massive sets, and he makes like these incredibly like moody images. And I loved his images and like the way that he did things. And this was kind of me using certain concepts to kind of like find my own way around, like how I like things. And I definitely like things dark. Like a lot of the images, like of my favorite stuff is I like a lot of contrast, and I like it like low key. And this was kind of me just like experimenting with like the whole like cinematic kind of feel and using
Yeah.
light and color for mood.
No, that's awesome. It definitely does have like a cinematic kind of vibe. Almost, I don't know. In the beginning, when I was looking at it, it almost looks like a Joker kind of thing. At the moment, like
Yes.
especially like the new Joker that they shot, not the older ones,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like it's got this
Yeah,
like
I love like that,
it's
like
cool.
those like colors, like the grading, like that cinematic kind of feel. Like recently, like in the last few years, it's just like really like I dig it.
Mm.
And also like I mean like I didn't like work out like exactly like how I wanted the image to look. So like I set it up how I like what my instincts said, and a lot of the things that I like about the image only came after I edited it. If that makes sense. Like I only like
Yeah,
started
100%.
realizing like, oh man, that's cool. And like one of the things that I really like about it that I only discovered that I liked about it after the fact that I did it was the way that it was framed, like Natalie's framed, like the light on the floor, the edges, like of the door on the left-hand side, and how the stairs kind of like go in. And like I had kind of an idea, like, you know, like when you set up something, you kind of set up your camera what's pleasing to the eye. So it was like kind of there, but I only like realized what I appreciated about the photo after I edited it and took it. So yeah, it's funny how things that, you know, funny how that happens sometimes.
How do you, like, what makes you, in a sense, think of doing something as a series as opposed to just one picture?
Oh, man, that is a ruddy great question. I don't even think I know half the time. For these ones, I know I jotted down some notes and like some ideas, and I think like I had uh, like each photo was going to be like like they're all going to connect like in some kind of a story. But honestly, it was just, or the reason that I like think of it as a series is just it all happened around the same time. And I was like consciously like working at a certain thing, and they're just kind of tied together. So these are like just like also like test shots, but they just kind of represent like, you know, the time of that time, like, you know, that I was being like inspired and, you know, being creative. But normally, I like to tell like stories regardless of like, you know, how important or unimportant, because most of like the little stories that come up in my head are like, you know, just like silly ideas that no one really would get, but they kind of like translate into an image. But I definitely like telling like a story. So like the series for me is the easiest thing, is to have like a couple of images that, you know, like I'll make like a link between them, like a mental link, even though it's not necessarily like obvious, but like I kind of like make like a story between the images. So this was in the same house as the previous one. This was just like upstairs, and I just liked the shape of the room. It was just like unusual, and that's Natalie again. And I just asked her, like I said, like imagine kind of seeing something that like you can't believe. I think like I had like this like story of like her seeing like a UFO or something, you know, something otherworldly, and she's just kind of taking it in. And again, I just like the composition of the room was just like unusual, and I just like framed it like that. And again, another composition. I exposed the side lamps, and then I was actually standing just like there's like a little like an alcove over there, and I held a light over Natalie, and then I blended everything together. So it's like another three or four shots. So yeah, like in this time I was like really like getting into like the whole composition, using multiple frames for one image.
So that's not a window that she's looking. It looks almost like it's an angled window.
It actually is. If I remember correctly, it's like a skylight that was there. So, you know, I kind of was like motivating the lighting that was coming in over there. But yeah, just like everything just kind of, again, like, you know, after I take a photo and I'm happy with it, like I still consider myself very lucky. Like it was a lucky shot. Like, you know, I don't know if it's just insecurities or what, but like just the way that the lighting all worked out, like it was just lucky. Like I didn't necessarily plan it to be out like that. It just ended up being like that, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always wonder, like with those things, this is like your subconscious breaking through and like trying to give you like something to do in a way.
I like to think that. Yeah, I like to think that, you know, there's like each photographer is different, and you know, you kind of, without maybe even consciously knowing like what you like or how you like to take a photo, you end up doing it, you know, like out of instinct. And what's cool is that everyone's got like a slightly different instinct, and you know, that's why you can give like 3 or 5 different photographers, like the same subject, and they'll all come away with something radically different. And that's rad. You know, I think you start getting like really good when you're able to articulate like what you like about photos, as opposed to it just being like complete instinct, you know. And that's why I always love seeing like interviews with photographers or any artists that you know, they know what they're doing, obviously, but like they've taken the time to think about what they've done so they can like articulate, you know, so like, and that's really cool. And you know, there's a lot of wisdom in those guys, like talk about that kind of stuff, about their work. It's very cool.
I think I also find, especially with like personal projects, I find it's often in retrospect that I figure out what I was doing. Not
absolutely,
like not at
absolutely.
the time. Like I had some other
that's-
idea, but not, oh, that's what I was actually doing, or that's what I actually needed to get out of me, or it's like
Absolutely.
a reflection of where I was at that time, kind of thing too. Yeah,
Definitely, yeah. No, I definitely relate to that.
that's awesome. I love the colors as well, like the blue and the yellowy kind of contrast. It's very cool. Like from the lights.
Cheers. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, like I never really appreciated color in photographs. Like I don't know about you, but like when I started out, like I loved taking black and white photos. And like whenever I used to like take like at like live shows and stuff like that, whenever I took like colors, because you know you've got like those reds and greens, you know, of like the stage lights, and they obviously like they blow out like horribly, so it's like a lot of the time
like
it's just like, you know, lack of the absolutely, and it's like, oh man, you can't. There's only so much you can do in post, or you get incredibly lucky and you just you manage to like meter it just right. But I used to love taking like black and white photos then, just because, you know, it's just like that, you could just see the tones without them being like color. And then like in the last several years, like I just really appreciate like color and how it can be used to like for emotion and stuff like that. And it's also like turned me on to like look at movies a little bit more and like cinematography. Because I've never, you know, like that's also something that's like very new for me, is like the whole video thing, and I'm still like kind of learning how I like to do things video wise, but I would like my photography to obviously come through in that. So color has become very important. This is the last one. So this was a complete spur of the moment shot. This is a different house that I house sat for, and it was like in the late afternoon, and I actually just went in there to go use the toilet, and I saw the light was just rad, and I was like, oh my god. And Natalie was there chilling with me, and I was like, Nats, do you want to like take a photo like just quickly? And it's quite a small space. I mean, it's actually quite a big bathroom, but like it seemed like where I wanted the camera, it's like literally like right up against the toilet, and I wanted to get like quite a wide shot without getting like too much like stuff in. So this was like nice and low, and then like I asked Natalie to get into the bath, and then we just took a couple of different poses with it in it. This one, I didn't composite. This is just straight up just one image. And this one I was just like, wow, that's really great. I loved the way that the light was just coming through enough that she like highlights like the hair light and stuff like that. And that was it, bro. And I thought it just went well with the rest of the series. And then obviously I kind of tweaked the colors a bit to get a little bit even more bluey, greeny again. So yeah, it was just very much of a spur of the moment moment vibe.
These, I get a feel of, especially with the three portraits, the three from the series.
Yeah.
There definitely seems to be a sense of like the person in the photograph is like, I guess like deep in thoughts, or there's like a contemplating or a thinking kind of
Absolutely.
feel, whether it's like reflecting about things, or even the one like looking out of the window, there's like a thinking feeling I get, at least to them.
That was like the idea was like to have like like moods coming through in each of them. Like I don't think I named them like particularly well, just like kind of whatever was there. And I remember like been watching Game of Thrones like a lot over
Yeah.
then, and so like I just kind of named it. But there was a phrase in Game of Thrones, and I
Yeah.
named this series out of it. Oh, the night is long. The night is long and full of terror, and that's what I named the series, and it's just got just like these kind of, I suppose, a little bit dark. Like I do like dark things a little bit, so but yeah, definitely like the whole emotion thing was me kind of experimenting with that, and like I do like when it comes to portraits and stuff like that, I do prefer this kind of thing, like having like just some kind of like story, I suppose, to kind of make it more interesting. But yeah.
If you are you currently busy with any like personal projects? Is this still something that you do as a practice kind of thing on the side of your normal photography work?
Absolutely, man. Like that's also what I wanted to say earlier, is that it's like so often we get caught up like in our work, and like we get stuck in like that kind of mindset. And I remember like around that time I was getting like a little bit frustrated, like creatively, because I was just kind of doing other people's work, which is great. It's always nice, but a lot of the stuff that I like to do personally, like clients just don't dig, especially like having a lot of like black and contrasty, darker images. It doesn't always go well with people's brands,
Right.
which is completely understandable. But it's also important for like as artists to kind of explore those things, and it kind of feeds your work as well. I mean, like learning to paint with light, like understanding like light and like shutter speeds and like the different effects that you get with like high ISO and all that stuff, like doing it like every week, for like 3 or 4 hours, you learn something. And that, like I said, like we were saying earlier, it's the process which a lot of the time ends up being more valuable than the actual final outcome. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Your current work as a photographer, you do like video too, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Not as extensively as I would like. Like lately, actually, like last year was quite quiet video wise, but yeah, I definitely do that.
Yeah. And it's all with food, or is
Mostly,
it's
I
mostly?
mean,
Yeah.
like my main client is In Apartment Foods,
Okay.
and they're just awesome. In fact, I've got my first shoot since this whole COVID thing next week,
Nice.
which I'm excited and also relieved and grateful for.
Yes.
But yeah, so a lot of my stuff is like food based, which worked out like really well. Like I still, again, like also like photographing people that I know. It's also comfortable for me. Like I'm not necessarily always like 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 easy with like people, especially strangers, and like kind
Yeah.
of commanding them like how to pose and stuff like that. So doing food is actually such a treat, and like working with stylists as well. It's like do it, put it out. The food looks good. Move it how you want to, and
Yeah.
that's great. It's not, it's just nice and easy,
Yeah.
and there's actually like a lot of like nuances as well that I've come to learn in like the last couple of years with food and lighting, on a smaller scale, which is actually really rad.
Yeah. It's I can definitely connect with that. When I often shoot like sports stuff, and again, it's usually events, it's with an athlete that I've never met before, and it's that
Yeah,
whole
I
thing
don't
of
know how
like,
you do it
okay,
though.
let's try and get comfortable with these people, and it's the whole going into it, like before the time I'm going to go meet
Mm.
them, like, okay, I can do this. I'm a photographer, because I always have these like doubts of like,
You got to,
how do I do this
oh,
again,
dude,
or like, am I going to get any
yeah.
good photographs or whatever, and then. So there's this whole act, in the beginning, almost of like,
yeah,
I
and you
know
have
what
to
I'm
like kind of
doing.
like build yourself up. Yeah,
And then,
I know. I feel the exact same
yeah.
thing, man.
And then, yeah, then you kind of get into it. But again, it's not the same kind of thing that say you would have with like Natalie when you used to working with her, and or not working with her, but it's you can just be comfortable and there's no expectations out of it almost, and you can like play
Absolutely.
in a sense, like play to create. And it's kind of hard sometimes to switch that play to create, at 2:30 in the afternoon with this
Totally.
athlete,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and then when I was in Panama last year or the year before, I was like also looking for work and that kind of stuff, and I found this little like a tea shop that also made these nice like Japanese food and stuff, and I just asked them, "Oh, do you want me to come shoot some stuff for you guys?" And I'd never shot food before, and I was just like, it was so peaceful, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have to like deal with the model,
Right?
right? It's just so calm, and I can move things around." And it was such like a, I don't know, it was just such like a peaceful experience. And I was like, huh,
Absolutely.
maybe I should go more into like food
I'm gonna.
photography. That was like actually awesome.
It is one of the things that I do enjoy. You know, like not having to like direct food. It's just like you can move it around, and it's like quite zen. When you get into the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I suppose it's a similar feel if you are working with someone like Natalie, where it's that similar kind of like Zen feel where there's a connection and there's, as opposed to working with a brand new model out of the box and it's just like never met and it's just sort of half checking are they okay all the time as opposed to just like letting it go. Yeah.
definitely, man. Yeah. Um, it's also like the relationship you build up with clients as well. Like I think like sometimes it's not always necessarily about like the best work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like obviously, you want to put out the best work that you can possibly. And like I don't know about you, but like when I look at like other people's work on Instagram, I'm like, my God, how are they so good? Like I want to be like that good. And it's like kind of that like
Yeah.
that insecure kind of thing. But like a lot of the time, like when you find like clients that you just click with,
Mm-hmm.
they're not necessarily interested in like the best the best image.
Right.
It's more of like if you work well with them and you can get to like their vision,
Yes.
that's awesome. And like I'm all about that, like the whole like relationship as opposed to
100%. Yeah.
like this like production line kind of thing, like
Mm.
client comes in, take photo. I prefer to have like clients that return, that you can actually
Yeah.
grow with over the years.
Something that you were saying earlier about, but it was about the concept of sort of like trying something without thinking that you know how to do it. So like there's like a Zen saying that I really like, and it's in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, in the expert's mind there are few. So it's
Yeah,
if you an expert at lighting and blah blah blah, and like I mean, I don't mean if you are an expert. If you think like an expert in the sense of I know how to do it and it will be right every single time,
yeah,
then you don't have many. There's not many like different things that are going to come out of it. It's always going to look nice and
yeah.
it's always going to look the same. But if you
I know
approach
exactly what you
something with
mean.
like a beginner's mind, which in the beginning we like naturally have. If you begin
Yeah,
photography, you don't know how to do anything, so you play with all these stuff and
yeah,
then you come up with something new. I think there's something cool about keeping that perspective of a beginner's mind, even when you get good at something, because then
totally.
it
Yeah,
kind of
you
opens up to.
absolutely. It's just like options and like different possibilities. It's also like I mean, uh, one thing that I've also found out like a while ago, I was asked to like put like edit like a video together, and they didn't give me any kind of direction whatsoever. Like they said, like have free reign, and like normally, like the first thing would be like, okay, cool, I can do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've lately discovered is you can actually be more creative with having boundaries. Like if someone gives you like just an idea of like we want this and this, as opposed to like go wild, do whatever you like to do. Like,
Yeah.
I find that like so frustrating because like, you know, I like to have like almost like a map. Like I like to not necessarily know exactly what I want to do, but just like some kind of like a roadmap of like where I'm headed, as
Yeah.
opposed to like being in the middle of the ocean, like
Right.
just stranded, you know. So like, and lately, like having limits, I got bored the other day and I did these like self-portrait kind of shots in like my typical like dark, moody kind of thing. And my original idea, I couldn't really do like my original idea because I didn't have like sufficient lighting. And, you know, like through just like doing all these shots, you kind of find a way to, or you make it work for yourself. So it's not necessarily like the image that you had in your mind, but like through the process of actually doing it, you find out like I created something that I actually liked with having less, which, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily done had I like had everything that I wanted. And sometimes it's good to have those limits, you know, just to push yourself. I think, you know, people can do the most extraordinary things when they're in the tightest spots, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, keep things balanced as well.
Yeah, I know, 100%. It's that, oh, if I just had this lens, I could take this photograph, and then that stuff never ends.
Every time, dude. Yeah.
And it ends up like stopping you from creating. That's the thing.
It is totally, dude. And like, you know, it's like a couple of years ago, like I really wanted, and I thought I needed a gimbal, which I probably did for a few shoots, and I definitely still use it, but I definitely don't use it as much as I thought I would have, you know? So like, you know, end up paying like 10, 12 grand, and I definitely don't use it as much as I thought I would have.
Yeah.
So it's like this mental trick, you know. It's like, oh man, yeah, like I need that. If I get that, I can do X, Y, and Z. And it's just like kind of, you know, like knowing what you need versus what you don't need, and what you can get away with what you have.
Yeah.
It's all, you know, all part of the experience, I suppose.
Yeah.
Growing and all that.
Thanks for watching another episode of Coffee with Creatives. I hope you enjoyed what Matt had to share. I've always found his work super interesting, so was super excited to have this chat with him. If you have any suggestions of who else I can interview on this project, please let me know. Always keen to get some ideas. And yeah, I'll check you guys in the next video.